Then verse 7, as they went away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds concerning John. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? In other words, like just a weak, soft man? It's like, no. What then did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft clothing? Behold, those who wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before your face, and he will prepare your way before you. Truly I say to you, among those born of women, there has arisen no one greater than John the Baptist. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. So Jesus was saying that John was a prophet. He was not some weak, soft little man. He was a fiery, mighty prophet of God. He was like the Elijah. In fact, Jesus said, amongst those who are born of woman, there's not been one who is greater than John the Baptist, which is incredible. He was just talking about, he's talking about Abraham, Gideon, David, Moses, like all these mighty men of God that were used by God. And Jesus is saying John the Baptist is greater than all of them. He's the greatest man and prophet. And then Jesus says, but whoever is least in the kingdom is greater than John. What is that all about? Up until this point, no one's been able to enter the kingdom. Not Abraham, Moses, Joseph, King David. They didn't enter the kingdom. They just could look at a distance and see it from afar because their sins were never removed. They were just temporarily covered. And everyone in the Old Testament saints who died, they didn't go up to heaven. They didn't enter into the kingdom. They went down to paradise. Abraham's bosom, Abraham's side. There was paradise, there was Sheol. In between was the abyss. And the unrighteous dead went to Sheol. The righteous dead went to Abraham's bosom, or paradise. And those were both waiting rooms for the departed souls of the dead. And they would wait until the coming judgments. Those in paradise, they had to wait for the coming deliverer, the Messiah, to come and shed his blood so that they could be forgiven of their sins and actually released from that prison. And we see when Jesus died, he descended into the lower earthly depths. He descended into paradise. He said to the thief on the cross, today you'll be with me in paradise. So Jesus descended to paradise, and it says he led captivity free. Okay, after he had shed his blood, he could release them out. And so the captives were released and they could come out. And then it says when he ascended, he led captives with him. So under the old covenant, before Christ had come, everyone, all the Old Testament saints, no matter how great they were, had to go to paradise. Even John the Baptist, who was the greatest of the Old Testament saints, even when he died, he would go down to paradise. But Jesus was saying the least in the kingdom of God is greater than John. Even though John was the greatest out of all the Old Testament saints, if you are least in the kingdom of God, then you are greater than John. In other words, the kingdom of God is at hand. It's coming through Christ, and anyone who enters it is better off than John. How do you enter it? By being born again. You can only be born again once Christ had offered his blood, died, and rose again. And so after the cross, people could be born again and could enter the kingdom. And so it didn't matter who you were. You could be the least in the kingdom. You were better than mighty John the Baptist. So Jesus, he's showing Israel the power of being born again, and that none of them were able to be born again. And they were all comparing themselves, how great they were, who's the greatest, and John the Baptist is great. And Jesus sort of plays into that, amongst all of you, amongst everyone that's ever been, John is the greatest. And they're like, wow, John, we want to be like John. And Jesus is saying, you know what? Whoever is the least in the kingdom of God is greater than John. It's greater than all of them, because they're simply the people who believe and have faith and are born again and are able to enter into the kingdom.